Good afternoon, everyone. Can everybody hear me? If you can't, there is a chat box at the... Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thanks. I see somebody said yes. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. You are present today for the Dora, Adam, Pre-Algebra DOMA, and Algebra DOMA, using data to differentiate instruction in the math classroom. So it's really a math interpretation workshop, math data interpretation workshop. My name is Lily Rivas, and I'm a customer success specialist with Let's Go Learn. I also have Aaron Delgadillo, who's our customer success technical manager, with me on the line to help field questions and to run a little poll. I will be checking if you have questions from time to time. There is a chat box at the bottom, so you can go ahead and type any kind of questions as you have them, or there's a little raise your hand. Feel free to use that throughout the webinar. Aaron, would you like to take over the poll?
Thank you so much, Ms. Lily. Hi, everyone. My name is Aaron Delgadillo, and before we get started with Lily's presentation, I wanted to ask each one of you a quick question, and I'm going to put it on the GoToWebinar screen. It's simple. How long have you been using Let's Go Learn? And feel free to answer so we can move forward. Great, we have a little over half of you have already answered. Thank you so much. So we'll wait a few more seconds to get everyone else's response. All right, we'll wait for 5 more seconds so we can get going. Great, so let me close up the poll, and overall thank you everyone for answering. So I'm going to share actually the results so we can see the makeup of this room. So over half of you are brand new, or this is your first year implementing Let's Go Learn. So welcome back, welcome everyone to your potentially your first data interpretation webinar. And for those of you, the rest of the crew, it looks like we have a few of you who have been with Let's Go Learn for a little while. So welcome back, and hopefully Lily will be able to share some new information to help use your data in a better light. So Lily, I'll hand it right back to you.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Aaron. So I'm going to go ahead and just give you a little bit of background about myself. Before joining Let's Go Learn's customer success team, I was a bilingual and dual language teacher in an inner city school setting, where I focused primarily on teaching, filling in the gaps, especially in the areas of literacy and math with those types of students. So, I'm really familiar with the challenges that you're posed with as you're trying to do the same thing in the classroom. And my school district at the time adopted Let's Go Learn. So we're talking, they've probably had Let's Go Learn products for about 10 years now. So I had a full, maybe 9 years, but I had a full 6 years experience with using our data. So it was a very natural and easier transition for me. Now, I wouldn't say easy because, every new job has its challenges and its, but it was an easier transition because I did know our products relatively well. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. We're just going over the agenda. We are going to go over our platforms here at Let's Go Learn. I'm going to teach you how to locate some helpful resources, some things that will help you get help quickly or just help yourself. That we're going to go over Adam data. We're going to go over pre-algebra and algebra DOMA data. And in there, we'll talk about running useful reports, and then we will close with questions and answers. But again, if you have questions, Aaron's here to help me field them, so go ahead and type them in the chat box if you need. So we always like to start every single session of professional development with the assessment and instruction cycle. And we do this because of the fact that so many people tend to lose sight of the fact that there are different types of assessments out there, and what you're administering in your classroom setting or at your site setting, at your site level, may not be measuring the things that you're looking to measure. So on one side of assessment, you have accountability and summative assessments. These tend to be your state assessments, your beginning of the year benchmarks or midterms, etc. So it's basically, the way it's positioned is that every child receives the same assessment, and teachers are left with some really good information, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then you have on the other side of assessment, you have diagnostic and formative assessments. So all of our assessments at Let's Go Learn fall under the diagnostic area. We're really trying to pinpoint why students are performing the way that they're performing. And as you can see in the assessment and instruction cycle, standards lives on the outside of that rectangle, meaning that although standards are there, they're always ever changing, they're always getting harder. Although they're there, we can't be blinded by them. We really have to take a look at where kids' efficiencies lie in order to help them simultaneously or after the fact, obtain those standards at the grade level, especially when they're super behind. So switching on to the next slide, remind you what's unique about our platforms at Let's Go Learn. Well, like I was speaking about those summative assessments, if we went back, sorry, I'll just go back to that slide. We're talking about accountability and summative assessments on that slide. We're not that type of test. That's a norm reference assessment, which basically leaves you with the information that a student is performing at, below, or above grade level, which is useful on many levels. But when a student is performing below grade level, we really have to pinpoint why the student is performing, or where exactly are they in the spectrum of mathematics. You math teachers would understand, or administrators would understand that you can't teach a child how to multiply if they can't add 2 plus 2. So we're also not a benchmark assessment. So we're not a benchmark assessment. We're not really telling you that a student is meeting grade level expectations. We're telling you that, but we're also telling you where they're deficient or where their areas of strengths are. Sometimes we have the opposite effect, where students are performing way above grade level. So we're really providing that adaptive platform to show you that. So we are a true diagnostic assessment, and we are designed to drive instruction in the classroom. A lot of the times, some schools come to us and they really want something for accountability or for reporting purposes, and even though this can be used this way, it's not really the way that we are set up. We are really, really looking for teachers to focus and narrow down the data in order to help their kids in the classroom. So this brings us to this slide. This is a standard model of assessment. I'm sure if you've been here for a number of years, you've probably seen this presentation at some point or another. But it's basically a slide that's showing, let's say, a reading benchmark for 4th grade. So every student in the 4th grade sees the same assessment. Sometimes some of the areas are not assessed. As you can see here, high frequency words, phonics, and spelling are left out. And as teacher is left with the information that a student is performing at, above, or below grade level. And again, this is great information. However, I always use myself as an example. I had a student that came to me when I was teaching 4th grade, and he scored a 0 on his benchmark beginning of the year. And you're really, that's great information. So he scored a 0. I know he's below, but that's not really helpful to me. I want to know, as a 4th grade teacher, how far below will I have to dig in order to find his information, in order to be able to meet his needs. So hopping onto this slide, you see a picture of what the DORA, this is actually, I don't know why this is here, I'm sorry. This is the DORA mathematics assessment, the DORA reading assessment, but it's very similar to the math one, where you have an adaptive platform. As students answer questions correctly, they get progressively harder. As students make mistakes, they get progressively easier. And the same is true as you go across the different subtests. So you get a much better picture of why a student is performing the way he's performing, and you get a better picture as to where you need to help them next. So our assessments at Let's Go Learn include DORA, DORA Spanish, DORA Phonemic Awareness, which is a pre-K to 2 assessment. We also have ADAM and ADAM Spanish, which is our K to 7 assessment, which is what we're talking about primarily today. And then we have DOMA. We have 2 of them. We have the Pre-Algebra screener and then the Algebra screener. So hopping in, here we have those math slides. It should have been a little bit earlier. So again, this is our math platform. You see that same benchmark for 4th grade. Students are all given the same assessment. A teacher is left with information that a student is at, above or below grade level. useful, but sometimes not so useful, not enough. So our assessment and the ADAM assessment actually administers subtests for 44 different areas of math. So a teacher can really, really pinpoint within the domains exactly what they need to teach next, which we'll get into as we hop into our data. So just a little bit of information about ADAM. I'm sure most of you already know these things, you know, that we use adaptive logic again as a student answers questions correctly. They get a little bit more challenging as they answer incorrectly. They get a little bit easier, and this level happens until we find the correct teaching point for every single student in all of the different domains and all the different constructs. And teachers have immediate access to student data. They have real-time access as soon as kids are done. So moving on. This is just a sample stagnant copy of, or a slide of all the different, some of the different pages that we have in our interface for math. So moving on, we have DOMA Pre-Algebra. So DOMA Pre-Algebra is a pre-algebra assessment designed to indicate which students would be ready for algebra, which students would be ready for algebra if they got a little extra help, and which students are just plain old not ready for algebra. So it's really a screener, usually recommended to be given for really advanced sixth graders if they're, you know, if they're really working on an advanced platform, but primarily for 7th and 8th graders that would be taking an algebra class within the next year or two. So really just to get an idea of those overall pre-algebra skills. So it does contain 14 different subtests, which you're going to get into. We do offer a pre-screening, a set of pre-screening questions, which are basically multi-skilled questions that are free response, and depending on how the student answers, then the different constructs open up. We do offer a math fact when students are making a lot of mistakes with their operations, with their basic operations. We give them a timed math screener and then an untimed math screener, which we'll get into a little bit more. And then also when students approach these constructs where they actually have to read aloud for themselves, if they don't do well in that area, then we open up a reading comprehension screener just to kind of gauge if there might be a reading issue that's hindering their ability to do math, which would require you obviously to dig a little bit deeper with their reading scores. So these are all of the pre-algebra subtests. So, starting with all of the different operations and then going on to more advanced pre-algebra skills. Again, some slides showing our interface for that assessment. Some of the reports that we have available for you, and then we hop into algebra. So algebra is actually an assessment that is meant for students that are either just getting ready to take algebra or have already finished taking algebra. So basically, or if students have maxed out in pre-algebra and they do so well, then this is an assessment that I would give them. So maybe it's that 8th grader who really did well in pre-algebra and is ready to enter algebra 1, or somebody who's already finished algebra 1. So, just use this lightly because it can vary from grade to grade. It really should depend on the skills that a student has on the pre-algebra assessment. So it does have 11 subtests. Again, like the pre-algebra DOMA, it has a pre-screening section where multiple step questions are answered. I'm going to go on here. Here's another static view of what the pages kind of look like when a student is taking the assessment. And some of the reports that we have available. I'm kind of flying through this because we're going to hop into the system and take a more detailed look. But, something that we always like to remind people of as we are, conducting these PD sessions, teachers give these assessments, whether it's the ADAM or the DOMA, it needs to be a beginning point for them. Teachers have to do their magic. They have to be able to group kids, they have to manage instruction, they have to be able to actually differentiate if there's difficulties within their classroom, etc. So this is a great beginning point, but it can't be, this data can't be left on the shelf. It really has to be used for differentiation. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into our demo account. When you go to our website at www.letsgolearn.com, you will log in as a teacher. This is a demo account, so forgive me if some of the data looks a little bit dated or strange.
And Lily, if you don't mind, while you log in, I want to do another quick poll before you get in.
Sure.
Excellent. So, okay, the next question that I'm going to ask everyone is a simple one so we can ensure that Lily is covering the main points within our website. So the question is, what grade level do you teach? I'm going to quickly launch that. Great. So over 40% of you have voted, and these are all great responses, and we will definitely have some very specific recommendations based off of these responses. Okay, so we'll close the poll in about 10 seconds. We're waiting for a few more people to answer. All right. All right, so I will be closing this information, and I'm going to share this with everyone. So overall, the majority of you here on the call today are administrators. So the information that we'll be presenting will be fantastic so that you can at least get some of the information or background information of what your teachers can see on a day-to-day basis. And the rest of you, a few of you are K through roughly 5th. Overall, back to you, Ms. Lily.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, that's really helpful when looking at the data. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. Oops, of course, I entered the wrong. Our system is case sensitive, so sometimes it's tricky. Okay, so when you log into Let's Go Learn, this is what you see. This is the home tab. You should see your name up top. Here, because it's a demo account, it says Let's Go Learn. But it should say your name at the top, and it should say your site. So your school and your name should match. You know, you always make sure of that. Sometimes there's gremlins. And if there's ever any issues, you can let us know. So first and foremost, Let's Go Learn is organized in a series of tabs at the top of the page. Right now, when you open up, we're actually in the Home tab. You have the ability here to switch classes. So if you know you service more than one class, you can quickly select any class that you want. So you have that ability right there on that page. We also have this area here where we put a lot of important information. So always, when you log in, even though you're always anxious to see your data, make sure you check in here to see if there's anything new or current that might pertain to you. Also here in the Systems Normal, make sure that, if there's anything going on, that you read up on it. But I do want to remind you, before we dive into our data, about the areas called Helpful Links and Teacher Toolkit, and then I'll point something else as well. So in Helpful Links, we have a Teacher Getting Started Center. So if you have any new staff members that just joined you, this is a great place for them to come, a great place for you to point out. We also have a Professional Development Center. So similar to the session we have now, we have all kinds of tutorials on data, on administrative accounts, on teacher accounts, etc. And then we also have, if you're a hands-on learner, we have these great virtual support tours, which are a series of short videos. And I'd like to point out the request support. So this is, it's kind of on the newer side, but when you have an issue, something that can, technologically is happening to you, or you have a missing student, you have something that's pressing, the best way to reach someone would be by requesting support there. That goes straight to our customer support group, and they should answer you quickly. And then here in Teacher Toolkits, we always like to remind teachers and administrators that there are administrative scripts that should be read to students before any assessment is administered. And we also now have this great database for tip sheets. It's changed a little bit from what it used to look like, so I'm going to go ahead and click on it to show you. But you can basically search articles here. So if I want to look for classes, it starts to kind of search live for you. So it would give you the article, it'll give you some advice on how do I close or add classes, etc. So just feel free to browse with that. When you do have a question, it's a great place to come. And also, up on the right-hand side, we do have a new help area, which again, you can request support very similar to where we were before on the helpful links, but you do have access to the knowledge base. The knowledge base is an excellent, excellent place. I'm going to go ahead and click on it for you to get help, even further help. So it's even more so than tip sheets. There's all kinds of things that are happening here. So if you're really looking for, I think uploads is one that's always comes up, like how do I get my kids uploaded? So it should open up. Actually, yeah, so something should automatically open up. I'm going to go ahead and close that. So it's a really great place to search. So knowledge base, and you have request support here. So leaving that behind, I'm going to go ahead and hop to my assessment tab. There are, so you know, there are other workshops that deal with managing your classes and other reporting functions and instruction. So, you know, feel free to take a look at our webinar schedule and sign up for some of those if you have, you know, further questions about your class tab or instruction or reporting. I'm going to go ahead and hop on assessments, and first we're going to take a look at Adam. So Adam got a facelift over the summer. This interface got a little bit of a facelift over the summer. So I'm going to go ahead and, you know, just point out that there are filters here that you can use in order to sort your information a little bit clearer. But what I really love about this, and I'm going to go ahead and click this here, is the fact that it became a lot user-friendly, a lot more user-friendly. So I'm going to go ahead and explain that I had a meeting with somebody earlier that was a little bit confused as to our changes, but it will make a little bit more sense to you now if you're an avid user. So what was happening was that our page opens up on the summary score. So you have total score, you have numbers and operations, measurement, data, geometry, and then algebra. What was happening was that people were over-focusing on these scores and not really digging deeper in order to help their students overcome some of their difficult areas in order to, you know, teach them. So what we did was we actually made the 5 domains more visible up top in another tab arrangement so that you can actually sort the data a little bit closer. So that's available there. We're going to hop in there for a minute, but I want to remind you also that you have the ability to show or hide columns by checking. So if I don't want to see the grade, what grade level they're in, I can remove it off my page. If I don't really want to look at their total score, I can remove that off their page, and you can see, you know, as you click, the columns kind of disappear. So that's available. That's a new feature. Sometimes you really just want to focus on numbers and operations or geometry or something, and you have that ability there to just look at that. But I do want to let you know and remind you, this was, you know, also the case for our page before, is that all of these little arrows here actually act like a live Excel spreadsheet and give you the opportunity to sort data based on, you know, from high to low or low to high. So I'm going to go ahead. This is essentially a 5th grade class. It says grade 5, but it looks like most of them are in 4th grade. Some of them are in 6th, but they're not real kids, so it's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and sort, since it is a 5th grade, 4th grade class. Numbers and operations is probably one of the biggest domains that is covered in that area. So I'm going to go ahead and click on sort so you can see what happens. This student that's in progress comes to the top, but basically it gives me a very quick at-a-glance look at who I'm going to have to really focus on for the school year when I'm working on numbers and operations, children that are behind. So we are, and I'm going to scroll to the bottom so you kind of see, bold scores that are black mean that the student's score is a 1/4 of a year or more below his or her decimal grade level at the time of assessment. So because this is a 5th grade class, or actually, I mean, some of them are 4th, but it's going to highlight or blacken any of those students. And then you will see also scores in green, which we'll talk about. They're maximum scores that are indicating mastery of a subtest. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and click on numbers and operations, since I know that that's usually, you know, one of the first areas that teachers focus on for the school year. When I click on that, the page changes quite a bit. So first and foremost, you have all of these different areas again that if you don't want to look at, you can go ahead and unclick any areas and the columns disappear. but I'm going to go ahead and leave them all there so you can see what happens. So what happens now is that you have the ability to see all of the different subtests for numbers and operations on one page. You do have to scroll a little bit to the right. Like you can see exponents here. It's pretty blank. So if I wanted to, exponents is not something that I should worry about as a 5th grade teacher or as a 4th grade teacher here, really. You can go ahead and remove that if you know your kids aren't really ready to learn that. So it just makes that, a little bit more condensed information there. So going back to this area, you have students organized according to their last name. You have the grade level that they're in. You have their last assessment date. It'll tell you when a student might be in progress. But now, if you recall, if some of you are older users or more advanced users, you remember that the previous assessment arrow used to be on the right hand of the screen. It's actually now on right there, right after the assessment. So if I want to see how many assessments a student has taken, I'm going to go ahead and click on that. They will pop up here. So you do have the ability to look at that for the different areas. And we'll hop back to that in a minute, but just going to go ahead and show you that that's there. But what I really want to take a look at, because I am teaching 4th grade, I know that fractions starts to become a little bit of an issue in 4th grade, and it gets progressively harder in the 5th. So I'm going to go ahead and toggle that. If I know that I'm teaching fractions next week, I want to start planning ahead. So I'm going to go ahead and toggle that from high to low. And now, at a glance, I can really, really, really focus on which children are going to need the greatest help. Maybe I don't want to target everybody, but maybe I want to target any student that might be 2.9 or below, which would be these kids here, which would be everywhere from Angelina Thomas up to Talon Anderson. So that's a really quick, at a glance look. But now I really want to focus, okay, well, I know these are the kids that I'm going to have to focus on, but let's see what everybody's ready to learn. Now, if you have been a more advanced experienced user with Let's Go Learn, you know that we had the instructional placement report. Now, we did have filters that were attached to that report, so they kind of made the report a little bit tricky to run. It is still available up top, but what we did was actually put it right next to the name of the construct. So I want to look at the fractions instructional placement report. All I have to do is click on that magnifying glass, and voila, I've got the instructional placement report. So basically what this report does is give me the entire spectrum in order from easiest skill to hardest skill in the area of teaching fractions. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll to the bottom, which is always my recommendation to teachers. My lowest level learners will be located at the bottom of that list. These 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 students are ready to compare fractions with the same denominator. If I scroll to the right, I see that it's about a 2nd grade skill, an early 2nd grade skill. These students here will be able to identify fractions using manipulatives as parts of a set. And if I scroll to the right, I see that it's about a mid-2nd year skill. So the way this report works is basically these 5 students I'm going to target to teach the skill to them. So they're going to compare fractions of the same denominator. Once those kids get that skill, then you can go ahead and move them up to this group. And the same is true of these kids here. Once if they're able to identify fractions as parts of a set, then they can go ahead and move up to this group here. So this is basically, as you scroll to the top, shows the entire range of teaching fractions and how fractions are learned. So Jasper Lawrence would be the most advanced student of my list, who's ready to learn least common multiples and greatest common factors, and that skill is about a 6th grade level skill. So, depending on the school district, it might be a high 5th grade level skill, but that's there. So I'm going to go ahead and just hop back onto that page. And I'm going to just click on summary report so that we can talk about a couple of things. We're going to, click on the summary numbers. When at Let's Go Learn, we do believe in conferencing with students in regards to their scores and how well they're doing or how poorly they're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this previous assessment tab for this student, Tanner Brown. So by clicking on that, like I showed you before, it gives you all of their scores for whatever went for all of the windows they've ever taken. So if a student has taken 10 assessments, they would appear under previous scores. If they've taken 20 assessments, they would appear here as well. And you have the ability to show their gains by selecting the assessments that you want to show. This student has only 2, so I went ahead and selected both. And I'm going to click on Display Gains chart. So this is a great conferencing tool. When I was in the classroom, I would basically call kids in or call kids up to my desk and just take a look at where they were performing. Maybe I would pull up their last 3 assessments, including the most current one, and really look at their areas of growth. And you say, wow, well look, first time you took the assessment, you're performing at an early 3rd grade level. Look, it's mid-year, and I'm just speaking hypothetically. You've already improved a little bit. You're doing really well overall. Look at your hike and numbers and operations. So even though it might be a younger learner, like a K-1 student or 1st or 2nd grade student, visually a student can see what's smaller and what's larger. And then here, in areas like geometry where students seem to have dropped, there's things that you can say, well, was there something wrong? Was it something that was it hard? Was it something maybe you forgot, or just that question you didn't know? So you can really just have that conversation with the student. And you also have the ability to print this report if you want to give it to a parent, or download it as a PDF if you want to email it to a parent if you don't, are into saving the environment. One crazy copy at a time. So hopping back here onto this assessment tab, I also want to point out the fact that the icon for reports change. I mean, it looks like it's still the same, it's very similar, but we do have a summary report, which I'll pull up quickly. You have the ability to download it as a PDF if you want to email it to someone. I'm just going to go ahead and pull it up with scores, even though it's also available without scores. It gives you all student information, when their last assessment was, how old they were, which is always very important, which is so often dependent on what grade level they're in, who the teacher might be in the classroom. And I'm just going to start by looking at, so we start off by summary scores, but we're going to start off by looking at that. But we do have the other 5 domains here. So this is a great overview report, especially for reporting purposes or to demonstrate growth from year to year. But basically what we have here is the entire scope and sequence of learning mathematics from kindergarten through 7th grade. So what we're trying to show here is that students have a total of 271 skills that are required for them to be successful at K-7 mathematics. So we are offering them a raw score. We provide them with a raw score and a grade level score. Raw score meaning the number of skills that are required, and the grade level score is an approximated grade level ability based on the amount of skills they have. So when I look at numbers and operations, this particular student has 35 mastered skills. So that brings them to a high 3rd grade level, even though they're an older student. So it would indicate somebody who's behind if it's red, and then somebody who's on or above grade level, then it would be shown in green. So this is a great report. I know a lot of schools are doing student growth objectives or something along those lines. This is a great area. So let's say that I really want to target the lowest area, like data analysis. Well, maybe I can make a predictor that by the end of this session or by the end of the year, I will have bumped him up an extra 10 skills, bringing him to a 4th grade level. So you can really make those predictions or set those learning goals accordingly if you wanted to, depending on the type of learner the student is. So moving on a little bit to the other strands, I'm going to go ahead and just debrief you on what these mean, because sometimes people look at this report and say, oh my gosh, all I see is red dots, or red dashes, and not sure what that means. So I'll explain this to you. We're going to start off with location and direction. Anything with an asterisk was an area that was tested. In some cases, the student wasn't able to answer any questions. So location and direction is a K skill, as you can see here. As you scroll to the right, the student was able to do 1 of 2 skills, bringing them to a mid-K level. So he was able to complete 1 out of 2 skills, which is why the student is below. 2-dimensional shapes, on the other hand, goes all the way from kindergarten, and the skills go all the way up to 3rd grade. this particular student was able to complete 5 out of the 12 skills, bringing them to about a mid-second grade level in that area. And as you scroll down, triangles, for example, starts out in the 3rd grade and goes all the way up to 7th grade. This particular student, even though the asterisk indicates that construct is opened up based on the grade level the student's in and based on his previous abilities, this student was able to answer 0 out of 5 questions, making him less than 3rd grade ready for triangles. So it is really valuable information. You just have to keep in mind that it is a summary report. It's not the end-all be-all of all reports. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you the same student since we were looking at that student. I'm going to show you the detailed report. There are other reports there. We're just going to go over summary and detail since, you know, time is of the essence here and we still have 2 more assessments to go over. But when you click on the detailed report, again, just kind of like previous assessment, you're going to see every assessment the student has ever taken with us. And you're allowed to compare up to 3 assessments. So you can show 1 assessment, but you can select up to 3. So this is a great assessment if you are looking to demonstrate growth from beginning, middle, and end of the year. So you can run it, you know, within those windows, select those windows, or you can run it if you wanted to compare their score in kindergarten of 2015 to their in June, and then to their June 2016 score, and then again in June 2017. You have that ability. So it's a great one to show, especially if you're working with special needs students where you really have to demonstrate that growth over time. So I'm going to go ahead and select the assessments I want to see. You have the option to hide mastered skills. This shortens our report. However, as a teacher, sometimes I prefer to see everything that they've mastered along with what they're still missing. So it's, you know, entirely up to you. I'm going to go ahead and click on PDF. Should pop up. You can also view it and print it, but I sometimes prefer PDF. So it gives you, again, all student information at the top right. And then we've changed, so this report actually changed, if you were familiar with the other report. It's a little bit more user-friendly, a lot more user-friendly, actually. So you'll see anything with a check mark. I see a question just popped up. Yeah, the look of the report totally changed. We're trying to make it a little bit easier for teachers. What was happening was that we were teaching people to read it from bottom up based on what we saw. Sorry, I'm trying to make the screen a little bit bigger. And it wasn't always as blatant as this one will be, and you'll see what I mean. So this will be a lot easier, and this is a report that you can totally print out and give to a tutor or give to another teacher who services a student, and then there's no question as to what the student needs next. So anything with a check mark is mastered or on grade level. Anything with an X is below grade level, and then it gives you a double arrow which indicates which skills the student is ready to learn first, or which skills you will teach first as a teacher. So as I look at my strands, I see numbers and operations, check. Number sense was on or on or above grade level, check, 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 and then I scroll down and I see an X. So he's behind on subtraction of whole numbers, and when I scroll down, I see, if I scroll to the right, you see that the student missed a couple of these, so it'll basically tell you, based on that on the last assessment, what the student is ready to learn. So this student is ready to subtract multi-digit numbers with regrouping because he missed the first area. And as you continue to scroll down, it will show you the same for all the different areas again. And multiplication, where he's ready to go. And then after he masters that, then he can come here, come here, come here, come here, etc. So it's become a little bit more user-friendly. We still do the plus and minuses on the right-hand side, which we'll talk about a little bit more if you have any questions. I know that I answered some questions for someone today. But go ahead and ask if you have questions. So I'm going to go ahead and hop out of there and hop into the pre-algebra assessment. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, since I know everybody doesn't have all day. And I'm going to toggle my class here. You can always change your class by using your filters. And because this is a demo account, we have some data here for pre-algebra. So your screen should populate accordingly. So again, you have that show hide columns. If you don't want to see some of these columns, it makes it, you know, a little bit easier. So what we have here is, again, students arranged alphabetically according to last name. You have their last assessment date. We have the previous assessments located here. You have the numbers mastered. You have the raw score. We have the basic math skill score, the pre-algebra score, and the grade level score. So what do these mean? I'm going to go ahead and show you, and also just remind you that when you do have a question about a construct, you can go ahead and click on the question mark, and it would tell you about that area. So as you can see here, the numbers mastered means a score of 14. So I'm going to go ahead and explain that to you. Numbers mastered means fully mastered, means that they got green dots in all the different areas. Means that they fully mastered those constructs. Anything that's a raw score actually takes partial mastery, anything with a yellow half dot, into consideration. So if a student has, for example, a 12.5 Azaria, as you scroll to the right, you can see that she had a half or a partial mastery in construct number 12. So we count those as well, just to kind of give you a little bit more visibility as to, you know, the kids' actual skills. So then we move into basic math skill, pre-algebra, and grade level score. So the first thing I'm going to say is that a lot of people in the past have been using grade level score for reporting purposes, and I would never deter anybody from using that for reporting purposes. It is a decimal, it does go up or go down, etc. But I don't always feel that it's the best indicator of a student's readiness for pre-algebra, because remember, this is a pre-algebra screener, and it's an assessment that should be used in, you know, 7th or 8th grade in order to determine Algebra 1 readiness. So what I like to use, or what I would prefer to use if I was still in the classroom, would actually be this basic math skill score. The way that our assessment is broken up is that the first 5 constructs are all basic math skills. So for example, 1 being integer operations, 2 fraction operations, 3 decimal operations, 4 comparing and converting numbers, and then 5 estimating and rounding. So those are considered basic math skills. So if I was in the classroom, I would probably red flag anybody, and here again you can sort this from low to high. I would probably target those kids that have anything less than a 4. So I would probably target Edward Edwards and Sarah Stevens for extra help, because that means that if they don't have their basic math skills down pat, they're not going to do well on a pre-algebra assessment or in an Algebra 1 classroom. So pre-algebra skills, anything from construct 6 to 14, are all considered pre-algebra skills. And again, this assessment gives you a math facts. So if a student does really poorly on basic skills, as you can see, remember we were going to target those 2 students, we give them a math facts test that is timed, and we give them a math facts test that is untimed, kind of like a quiz. And then when students are demonstrating a little bit more difficulty in areas like, I think it's construct 13, interpreting data, where they actually have to read to themselves, if they demonstrate lack of proficiency, then we open up a reading screener for them. So as you can see here, some of those scores indicate that. So this student doesn't seem to have any reading problem, but the one below might at a 40%. So I would probably dig into their data, their DORA data, to really, really focus on that student. So I just want to point out also, one last thing is that, you know, there are reports, individual reports available. It's pretty much what we just kind of went over. So I'm going to go ahead and let you, you know, take a look at that for yourself. And if you have any questions, we have an array, a plethora of tip sheets and videos that we can send you. So we'll give you the email at the end where you can write to us. So I'm going to go ahead and hop straight into the algebra assessment, reminding you that this assessment is geared for students that are pretty much algebra ready or that have already taken algebra. So it's basically to see, put your feelers on how they are performing. So this is a kind of like a small group of kids, you know, in this demo account. but here they are. So unlike pre-algebra DOMA, this one has only 11 constructs. And remember, the other one had basic math skills and pre-algebra concepts. These are all Algebra 1 concepts. So if you click on the question mark, it'll give you all of the different titles: evaluating advanced exponents, solving linear equations, etc., going all the way up. So now we're only providing you with a number of mastered areas. So these are all fully green dots. And then the raw score, we're still offering the half yellow dot, counting it as a half a point. And then anything red would be a 0. So that's still there. Again, these act like, live spreadsheets where the lowest score comes up to the top, etc. And I do want to point this out. I forgot to point it out in the pre-algebra assessment, but I'm going to go ahead and point it out here. When I really want to take an at-a-glance look as to who really is missing what and what percentage of my class is missing it. You can click on this Display Class Mastery tab and you can select all of the different areas, but maybe you just want to look at one. I saw a lot of red in the last construct. When I create that report, it basically tells me the breakdown of all of the different areas that are assessed underneath that construct, but it also gives me the percentage of students that did poorly or did well. So 100% mastery as opposed to 33. So maybe I'm not going to worry about exclusions in the denominator. I want to start worrying here. This is where I really want to start focusing, simplifying rational expressions. And when I click on that, it actually tells me who mastered. Tim Lease got the concept, but the other two students, Stuart and Susan, did not. So I have the ability to download and print, and that way I can really, really target my instruction to meet their needs. And I would do that for every single area. When I'm ready to work on, the next area was multiplying rational expressions. So this is and it's also a report that's available for the pre-algebra report. So and again, the same reports that are available for the pre-algebra DOMA are available here. They're very similar to what we just kind of went over. But again, if you look at them and you have any questions, you can for sure email us. So I'm just going to go ahead and just review quickly what we went over today. And as you have questions, please feel free to ask them. I'm happy to go over anything with you. But just want to remind you, when you log in, the importance of checking our announcements, requesting support, where virtual support tours, professional development center, and tip sheets are located, where you can also go to access the knowledge base under help, and then your assessment for Adam, all the different areas that you can look at. Let me just toggle that into 5th grade. You have the ability to sort this sheet by clicking on the arrows. You can see the different domains by clicking on the tabs. You can choose to look at an instructional placement report just by selecting any kind of magnifying glass. I'm not sure why that happened there. Let's try it again. No, it doesn't like that one for right now. Might just be something funny in the system, but I'm going to go ahead and click. Oh, none of them are working. Okay, great. But that's where you would access that if you didn't want to use this this tool here, which is a little bit different. You have individual student reports on the right-hand side. And then for pre-algebra DOMA, you have all of the different constructs, 1 through 14. You have your basic math score, pre-algebra score, and a grade level score. You have your previous assessments on the left. You have all of the reports here, and this is where you would access your display class profile in order to see areas of weakness for your students. And then for Algebra 1, we went over the fact that these are only 11 constructs and that we only offer a numbers mastered and a raw score for this one, since they are meant only for algebra students or students that are ready to take Algebra 1. And then the same individual student reports. So I'm going to go ahead and open the floor for questions. If anybody has anything to ask, now is the time to do so. And if you don't have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and pop up this last slide here, where you can go ahead and email us or call us if you have any further questions or anything unique. We do have an array of workshops that are available to you, either pre-recorded, or we do offer some live webinars or on-site professional development. So if you have any kind of interest in that, please email us or call us.
Also, Lily, I want to add at the end of this webinar, when you do sign off, you will be given a quick survey, and feel free to let us know how we did, but also you'll have an opportunity to input if you are interested in anything further with Logical Learning, including those live webinars or live PD sessions.
So we'll leave this open for a few more minutes. If anybody has any questions, now's the time to do it. Or just email us if you have something private or something a little bit more elaborate. We'll be happy to go over anything you need with you. Okay, I see some people wanting the PowerPoint. I will gladly send that over. Thank you for being here. Thank you for attending the workshop. I'll leave this open for a few more minutes and see if anything else comes up. Yes, I see that somebody asked, how will you send the PowerPoint to our email? Yes, I will gladly share that with whoever was on. I will send it to your email. Okay, so that's a really great question. So this is an administrator asking, how do I see all of the kids' scores in my school? I'm an administrator. Unfortunately, I just went through a teacher account, so that would not be located in this account. Julie, I think that we will have to send you an actual link to register for one of the administrative workshops, which will go over all of that. Erin, can we send her the link?
Yeah, we can also send you the link. We can also send you a pre-recorded webinar that we had as well.
Oh, that's true.
We can do that. We'll double it up.
Yeah.